Where do I find the
The agenda,
yeah, the invitation?
it's the same one, but you don't need it because we're right here.
Oh.
So you'll be all right. So we're live now on YouTube, Chris?
Yes.
All right, Louise has got, passing out some agendas. The agenda's also on board docs. We've got, 4 board members here, Mr. Gulick, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Giroux, Mr. DeFrancesco physically here with us today. And via Zoom meeting, Mr. Berkey, who do we have?
Jeff,
Mr. Brooks,
Jen,
Ms. Davis,
Tim Brown,
Mr. Brown.
Brian Hoffman.
All right, and a couple, central office folks. So we appreciate everybody being here. We are live on YouTube, probably a few second delay. We're having a policy meeting this evening, and next Monday, in a very similar fashion, we're going to do our virtual voting board meeting, kind of a hybrid of some physical and some online. So I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. DeFrancesco.
Well, I'm calling the meeting to order, and I see that everybody's present. The item for discussion at this point, we have policy 213, 214, A15.3, 321 is political activities, 321.1, political indoctrination of students, and finally will be at last will be the policy 02, local board procedures. We can start with Dr. Grace Poole with the 213. He can give it his spiel.
All right, I appreciate that. We actually revised policy 213 back in February of last year, 2019. For the purposes of this policy, what we are asking the board to consider to remove is a couple sentences. It says class rank, grades 11 and 12. It says that class rank is calculated at the end of the year. And it goes on to say the class rank, valedictorian, and salutatorian will be carried out to the 100th decimal point. The reason for this change deals with the class rank policy, which is policy 214. We are asking the board to consider modifying policy 214 class rank to completely eliminate class rank. Class rank policy has been in effect since 1985. A lot has changed in education since then, not just honoring the top students' grade point average and the second students, but what we're looking to do with this policy is change that to recognition of academic achievement and recognize students, maybe a broad range of students who have persevered over their 4 years and really done an outstanding job, and not just recognizing the valedictorian and salutatorian, class rank 1 and 2, but rank any student that classify them as distinction who has over a cumulative 98%. And then we would recognize high honors at 90% and honors at 80% in a couple different ways. If we had to calculate class rank, we would do so for a student that needed class rank specifically to get into college or to apply for a scholarship. We would do valedictorian, salutatorian this year to finish out this year, and we would use the semester grade as the endpoint. And the reason for that is the COVID-19, one of the reasons, the COVID-19 interrupted the third and grading period. So we thought, how can we do this fairly for all students? If we use the end, it may benefit some students and others. If we use the end of the third 9 weeks, it would benefit some students over others. And if we use the semester, we felt that that was the most fair way as the last quarter that was wholly graded. Additionally, we have historically used grade point averages out probably 4, sometimes even 5 decimal places. So the grade percentage could have been a 98.56. Our policy says that we round to the 100. However, for the valedictorian, salutatorian, we've always carried it out 4 or 5 places. Because depending on if we use the fourth 9 weeks, the third 9 weeks of the semester, that percentage point will determine valedictorian, salutatorian. So, for this year, what we're saying is that we're gonna carry out valedictorian, salutatorian to the 100th decimal place, and if there's a tie, there's gonna be a tie. Can you mute that, Bob? Okay.
How do I turn the volume up?
Chris is gonna do it for a minute. So you can obviously read through the policy. The other part of this policy that hasn't been updated, it says 2012. In 2012, we should have updated the policy or sometime between there, and the current, but right now, we use average percentages. You know, so a student will end his career or her career with a 98%, a 76%. Our policy reflects grade point average, which is 3.8, 3.9, 2.6. So we've modernized the policy, but we really believe that the board needs to read through the policy. We need to have some discourse about it, and we need to approve it in May, on May 11th, next Monday, which is opposed to our typical 2-month reading process, because we're trying to put this in place for the graduating class of 2020. We're also trying to put this policy in place so that we don't harm any students, and that's why we're going with a tie for valedictorian, salutatorian, if it happens. Now, moving forward, part of the problem is this year, the grades this year will determine, in part, the next 3 valedictorian and salutatorians at each school. Because this year's grading period was interrupted by COVID-19, it will impact the next 4 years, without a doubt. Even if you go back to normal. It's a mathematical possibility. So what we're suggesting is we try to recognize high achievers, but do away with the titles of valedictorian, salutatorian.
Which it really don't make any difference for the students to get into college, right?
I don't believe it would impact them. Now, there are some, if there was a scholarship out there that said if you were the valedictorian in your class, we would follow the policy that says, we'll calculate that for you, and we'll calculate it out to the 100th place, so 2 decimals. And if there's 4 ties, they're all gonna be reported as number 1. So what we're doing is trying to modernize the policy a little bit and try to put a policy in place that will not harm any students. We think that we can do this. The high school principals and other central office staff have weighed in on it. You know, we kind of placed this before the board for thoughts, ideas, and considerations to vote on May 11th.
Any comments from the members?
Or on the Zoom call? You okay moving this forward?
It's beneficial to all of them, so.
Well, you guys agree to accept it as presented?
So we're just doing the honors, high honors this year,
And distinction. We'll do it this year, and we'll do
the next 3.
valedictorian, salutatorian this year.
This year.
If there's a tie, we'll take it out. So in the past, we've taken out valedictorian to 4 or 5 places. So now we're gonna say it's gonna be a final percent of 2 100s. So if it's 101.89 and there's 3 people that have that, they're all gonna be valedictorian this year, class rank of 1. And we're gonna continue this policy as written, which means next year, for the current junior class, 2021, we would not have a valedictorian, unless they needed it to go to college or apply for a scholarship specifically, but we would recognize students that have a cumulative percent above 98%. So we're gonna probably include more kids, in that percent as distinction. But we will not have valedictorian or salutatorian,
next year.
correct?
Next
Or
year.
the year after, or the year after that.
I guess my concern is, it would be the same thing this year, as far as you're ending it at the end of whatever.
The
9
semester.
weeks. So, just because somebody wasn't number 1 or 2 at that point, doesn't mean they wouldn't be number 1 or 2 at the end of the year. I mean, I guess, why not just start it this year for the next 4 years?
Oh, you mean do away with valedictorian, salutatorian?
Yeah, I mean, because you're talking about harming nobody,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying it would or wouldn't,
Sure.
but be consistent and just say, all right, because of this, we gotta do something, and, you know, because somebody in 4th place could jump to 2nd if things would have stayed the same.
If we went to the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Yes.
be consistent.
I think that it's already known who these folks are. And I think that we already know that there are ties. I think what we're
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying is, why set ourselves up?
I think to not do valedictorian, salutatorian this year would cause problems. I think it may even cause problems down the road with certain individuals, but I think that this would be a fair way to do it. I don't think we're gonna harm anybody. We can go back and I can check the math, or have the principals check the math and see what it looks like. But,
No, that's just something,
Yeah.
you know,
I see what you're saying,
if we're
Mark.
gonna do it, just,
Yeah, it
Might
takes
just
away the
be a little-
incentive, try harder, I think, but.
Might just be a little too abrupt this year. I mean, they've been working towards this, and then just because the last couple months, I understand what you're saying, and it's a very valid point, Mark, but I think we should have it this year, in my opinion.
But the thing of it is, it's always gonna be abrupt, no matter what we do. And if we're gonna make a change, now would be the time to make the change.
It wouldn't be that abrupt though, because they'd have a whole nother year to come to terms with it, whereas our current seniors have had quite a bit of change in the last 2 months without adding anything else.
Right.
Right, Jen, that's what I was trying to say. You articulated it better than I did.
Oh, well,
how about if we'll check the numbers, and we'll see which is more beneficial for students, and we'll do that, and I'll make sure I report out next
yeah,
Monday.
I just, like I said, I get the abruptness and everything, but, you know, and realistically, it's only gonna affect 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
It's not like the entire senior class is gonna be affected.
Yeah, and,
But I get it,
I think, like I said, those individuals who are valedictorian have already been notified, specifically at one of our schools already. And there was a tie, so, but we'll double check, and again, you know, this is, like Ms. Davis has said, this senior class has had quite the change, over the last couple of months, so
oh, trust me, I know.
I'm sure you do. All right, well, we appreciate your support as we move forward with that. And again, if any individuals have questions or concerns as we move forward, you know, please, reach out to building principals or send me an email, and we can continue that conversation. The other policy that we need to talk about due to the COVID-19 pandemic is, use of live stream video. This is a new policy, 815.3. I would like to move this forward for the May adoption as well. This is a new policy for us, but it's not a new policy in general. We've modeled our policy, after the IU's policy, to include everything up to and including telepresence robots. We don't have those at this time, but, we think that this policy is in our best interest as we move into, Zoom meeting, Teams, Google Meet, and the like. So I know that our solicitors looked at it and there aren't any, concerns at this time. I think it's also good to get in place. And as we continue to refine our craft of, virtual instruction, remote learning, we may be able to, fine tune this policy as well. So I'll move all 3 of those policies forward for May 11th to vote on. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
No problem. All right, I appreciate it.
Guess we have no choice right now.
It's a difficult situation, but again, everyone's done a really good job so far, so, you know, we're gonna continue moving in that direction.
Is you done?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, the next item will be 321, political activities. Now, we had quite a few comments from, several board members. So the whole thing is to keep it consistent with the other school districts. You know, we're throwing everything out you had before and go with this new recommended policy.
Is what's being passed out, is that what's on the website?
Say that again?
Is that one on the website somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah, this here comes from, the Sheller Area School District. And I got, okay, let me go through my presentation.
We don't
So you
have-
can explain.
We don't have one from another school district here.
The current policy 321 contains one sentence only, prohibiting engagement in political activities. In my opinion, this is too vague and unenforceable. The proposal I'm presenting to the board, to the committee first, is not any different from the same policy in effect in the Conneaut Lake School District, Plum Boulder Town School District, familiar? Fairview South School District, and Shell Area School District. Policy 321 does not curtail political activities, number one, outside the district property, but the proposed policy is more specific on what the board wishes to prohibit when political activism occur on district property, and the individual are paid by the district. To keep the policy as is to give the district employees a license. It's just like giving the district employees a license to do whatever they want on district property. Even if the present policy was clear about prohibition, there is no consequences for elusive infraction. As a side note, the Commonwealth of PA has the same prohibition within the state properties. As a matter of fact, as an ex-state employee, I had to abide by the rules that the state came down with as far as participating in political activity on the state premises. I mean, we couldn't do nothing. You know, we could argue with the, like we do now, you know, with the other employees. That's the extent of it. We could not. Now, the reason why I took some of the policy that the other area use to show that other school district has been using this policy. And I'm sure this policy came about and created by the PSBA years ago, and everybody in every district adopted. For some reason, some of the districts decide to change it to one sentence. Employees shall not engage in political activities during assigned work hours on property under the jurisdiction of the board. And the other thing that is to note, I think it's important to note, we have a lot of policies that we require the administration to make sure they abide by, but there's no penalty. At the end, you know, if anybody can make an infraction to any of the policy, and there is no penalty. So what good is to have a policy with no penalties? So we're including on this proposed political activity policy, I have included at the bottom that if any violation of any foregoing shall, at the discretion of the board, constitute cause for reprimand, penalty, or dismissal. And I think that should be expanded to say that the first violation should be a reprimand, the second should be, time off. And finally, on the third infraction should be a dismissal, if that's what the board wants. But the key that I'm saying is the board needs to set rules that the employee should follow. Now, if you wanted to see the other policies, I have copies of the County Schools District, Fairview Township, Charlotte, and Plum. Would you like to see it?
Yes, please.
It's not that I just create out of my mind a policy that will carry my name on it. No, it still is the PSBA policy that was enacted years ago.
Luigi, we've got 3 versions of that policy up
Well,
on our website. Is it one of those versions?
Did I give you a copy of that? Yeah.
Let me see if
It's pretty similar with the Plum,
well, here,
Plum
I got,
School District had.
I think it's about the 5-4 one, 5-4.
is it, I think it's this one as well. I'm just, for any member at home or other folks, we've got 3 versions up on the website.
Well, some of the board members who give us, make comments, you know, they had pretty good comments. And in order to clarify what they say, you done with it?
Yes.
Let me give it to
Yeah.
Bob.
Oh, that's fine.
It's closest to the 5-4.
Well, the intent was to make sure that, the proposed policy met your comments. Timmy Brown, he had some comments, and hopefully that will satisfy everybody. But I think it's important that we have more than one sentence. Okay, this is, you familiar with the one we have now?
Mm-hmm.
Bob, are you familiar with the one we got now?
I can put this up on the web.
I don't know if I emailed it or not
No.
to everybody. Any questions? Recommendations?
Well, if we're at the discussion phase right now,
Actually, excuse me, real quick. Which policy on here are we voting or discussing about? There's 3 policies.
At
320.
321.
Okay, but there's,
But this will have to be a first reading because this is completely new now. It's not gonna be a final, we're not gonna vote on this. I don't think we're gonna vote on that.
No, this is different from all 3 of the policies we have up, so it's been tailored a little bit. So what I can do is, I can put it up, as a first reading policy.
And that give you more time to, if you find something else that need to be brought to the attention of the board. Because the board, you know, I keep saying the board because the board is the final arbiter, you know. The
Correct.
board has to decide what to do.
It's closest to the 5-4 policy, the May 4th policy, it's up there. I can scan it in I can get on the agenda for
well,
Monday.
according to our solicitor, go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, my question is on the agenda items, I have 321, 31220, 321, 5420, and 321, 9816. Which policy are we talking about?
321.
321, but this is a newer version. So this is like a 5420A or B. This is,
Oh, he's talking about the date?
yeah, like this, yeah, like these policies up here are, from the 16th, and then in March, we were talking about it. And then this was the most current version, that's up on our screen now that you guys can't see.
Okay, because you guys keep saying it's like 5420, but I'm not
It's
sure if
not.
I'm looking at the same thing you are.
You're not.
Okay, so I guess I can't comment on it if I can't see it.
Well, that's why we just have to, give to you, to the board as a first reading.
Yeah, well,
So that'll give you a chance to go over this again, finally.
I've read it and thought about it, and I also read our solicitor's suggestions and comments and excuse me, and ideas. And according to our solicitor, this policy does nothing to improve on the original.
Well, I don't think that he's familiar with this one.
Well,
To be
he
honest.
said, he's seen 4 different versions, and none of them improve on the original. What he said that I do agree with is there's wisdom in generalities. You don't want to put too much specifics in because people will say, well, that wasn't in the policy, so I didn't violate it. So, I'm gonna take his suggestion, and I cannot recommend or approve
No, we're
the
not,
changes. It seems to me, Luigi, that we have a solution in search of a problem. Again, there have been no problems with political activity, ever since I've been working here or on the board,
well,
that I'm aware of. You've got a solution in search of a problem. All due respect, I think you're just paranoid that people are gonna do something and you're trying to head them off at the pass, and I don't see the wisdom in that.
you have any comments?
I worked for the state, and I had the same thing. I had to fill out a, employee handbook every single year, sign it, and turn it back in, telling us what we could and couldn't do. And, they were very strict on the political things. I couldn't even put a political sign in my yard when I worked for the state, which to me is an overstep. I don't see where we're trying to push that. It's only during the work hour when we're paying them to work.
But that's already clear in the original policy. You cannot do political activities when you're at work. That's already clear.
I guess the
Okay.
question I have, I think I'm reading the right policy, I'm not sure. But the discussion of study, or I'm sorry, the discussion and study of politics and political issues, when
I think that's under the 321-1.
Oh, that's the next one.
No, it's under 321.
It doesn't seem to me like this policy's ready to come out of committee. We haven't had a chance, we're having a meeting now, we haven't looked at it. And, even now during the meeting, we don't all have a chance to see what it is. So I don't think it's really ready to come out for a first reading this next week, would be my opinion.
I guess the only thing I'm gonna say, because yes, I can't say anything until I know I have the same policy you guys are looking at. But on the 321 5.420 that I'm looking at, the only thing that worries me is the discussion and study of politics. So I'm taking that as teachers and students in the classroom discussing politics. And I know that sometimes discussions go off the curriculum. They go farther than that, especially if there was a debate the night before, or President Trump, for example, spoke last night and they had discussion about that. That's not part of curriculum. I think we have to be careful on that, because the older kids and teachers will have discussions that may not be quite with curriculum at that point. Are you saying that that's wrong?
No, it says on there, under the following situations are exempt from the provisions of this policy. Number one, the discussion and study of all politics and political issues when such discussion and study are appropriate for classroom studies. It
Okay,
exempts
but well, okay, this one is different. The other one said that went with curriculum. And what I'm saying is we can't hold that because curriculum can change in a heartbeat. So I just want to
Right.
make sure we have that covered, because I don't want anybody getting in trouble if they're not with curriculum. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, Tim, the proposed new policy that I'm just introduced, and it's my fault, I should send you guys a copy of it, does not cover that, you know, it's nothing to do with the discussion of, actually, policy 119 is, Ted Watson brought it to our attention, covers that. But this here doesn't talk about it, discussing anything, you know, just saying, yeah, let me read it to you, okay? Number one, no employee,
Luigi, stop. I'm not being mean, but I would like to read it. Just send me the
okay,
we're discussing, okay? I just want to make sure, and if this one here doesn't say curriculum, so I'm more okay with that.
no, it doesn't say curriculum anything, no.
Well, the other one did. The other one did
Yeah.
say with curriculum, and that's the
It
problem.
did. That's why we come up with this one, that I came up with this one here, to satisfy your concern and Mr. Gulick's concern, and also Jeff Brooks. But the first reading, you know, Mr. Gillespie, would you please explain what the first reading entails?
Well,
Well,
I
I guess-
understand the first reading. I'm okay with that.
I know you do, but somebody else, it seems that the first reading is something that we push down somebody's throat. No, the first reading is to give the public and the rest and the full board a chance to read this, and that's why you're going to get a copy of this, to read it the way it's presented, and then, you know, the whole full board will be able to vote yes or no on it.
I don't
But
think
that's all
first
that-
reading should, I don't think first reading should be used as just a springboard to throw it out there. Here's some stuff we don't think is very good, but we're gonna put it out there. Maybe we try to use first reading as something that is actually good that we're considering, and then we get opinions based on what we're actually proposing, rather than just rushing through first reading. First reading can wait. You know, we don't have this policy. You've changed it. It's been changed however many times, so it's obviously not ready for a vote. I don't know why we'd put up for first reading if it's not gonna be something we're gonna vote on. In my
Because
opinion.
this is Jeff, this is the policy, the procedure that this board have used for the past 50 years.
Why do
You
you
know,
put
we're
bad policy?
not gonna change we can't change the procedure, that's the law.
I'm not
Okay, the
saying-
procedure is.
Excuse me, I'm not saying we get rid of first reading. I'm saying we don't put bad policies up for first reading. We wait till they're ready to go out, and then we put them up for first reading, and then we vote on them. If the committee's not agreeing on it, and we know we're gonna make changes to it, there's no sense in putting it out there for a first reading just to check that box off. That's not fair to the public. That's not fair to us, in my opinion.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't see the point to postpone this any further. This has been going on as far, if you guys want to vote on May 11th, fine, let's vote. Get rid of it or accept it. But
I
to
also don't think
postpone
we just give up.
indefinitely, you know, what's your point to postpone this for indefinitely?
That is not ready. You make changes to it today, so it's obviously not ready to be read to the public. It's not a good policy.
But that's why the first reading is for. Okay, we'll see about
Hey, Luigi,
what the committee wants to do.
Luigi,
Yes, sir.
could you do me a favor and just make sure that we all send us an email to make sure that we all have this exact copy, so I can make sure we're all reading the same copy? You understand what I'm saying? Because
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure there's no confusion because there's 3 of them listed there. So if you email that copy to us, just to make sure, you understand what
You
I'm
would-
saying? So we're all reading the exact same one.
Yes, sir.
If I'm reading the exact same one, I really don't have too many issues with this one. but I
Yes,
wanna
sir.
make
I
sure
suppose
we're
to
reading
scan
the right
it and email it to you right now.
Yes, sir, you know, I think Dr. Glasspool is going right now to make copies or, make sure you get it,
Email it.
or email it. But, I got no problem. The only question I have is why postpone indefinitely?
I don't think we're looking to postpone it indefinitely, but postpone it until you have a good policy we can present. If we do a first reading and then that's not the policy we're gonna vote on, then the first reading really does nothing. It's just a waste of time.
Well, let me ask you, if I may, Mr. Brooks, let me ask you a question. What's a good policy in your opinion?
Well, this would be one that, we don't even have this policy, so that makes this a bad policy. A policy that we have the solicitor look at, the policy that comes out, that is going to be the policy we vote on. Not a policy we're gonna put out there knowing we're gonna make a bunch of changes to, because that's not fair to the public. If the public
Well-
thinks we're voting on this first policy or the first reading, then we wait a month and we vote on it, but we've made a bunch of changes to it, then the first reading didn't really count. It just was checking off a box, hoping to get it approved at the next meeting. So a good
I'm gonna ask
policy
you
is the final policy we want to vote on.
I'm gonna ask you again, what's a good policy in your opinion to satisfy your idea?
On this particular issue,
This policy came out from the PSBA and and it's adopted by many other school districts. So what's a good policy in your opinion?
I don't are you asking me what is good policy 321?
No, I'm asking you what you expect to be a good policy. Because that's what you're, you say you wanna,
Follow the rules. I expect it to be something from the PSBA. I expect it to be within the guidelines of the solicitors, to be legal. I expect it to be something that we present and then we vote on it at not just first reading, but the actual policy. This particular policy is not good policy because we have not read it. No one has read it. It passed out there. No one has read it. So we can't really even intelligently make discussions on what this policy is. So this is a bad policy because it was just made up this morning. It should not be coming out of policy committee, in my opinion, until it's a policy we're ready to look at and vote on seriously, not just put out there and know we're gonna make changes to. So bad policy is a policy we know is not good and we'll make changes to.
so in other words, instead of, the time frame that the, first reading will give it to all the board directors of a month, you feel everybody needs 2 months to review this policy, proposed
I think
policy.
there could be a good policy.
Say?
I think the policy committee could have a good policy and I think it could be done. But what we're doing now, we have the policy meeting now and no one even has the policy. So it seems like it's bad policy because it's just not ready now.
Okay, let me read this, what the solicitor said on this, in his not signed memo. This is what he wrote about policy 321. The board can, on the other hand, prohibit politics when they are being paid by the district and/or on district property. And that's exactly what this policy does. This policy follows his recommendations.
Luigi, let me interrupt. That's what the original policy did. There's nothing new in this policy that's not in the old policy. The suggested changes do nothing to improve the policy, and I recommend the policy remain as is exactly what the solicitor said.
Well,
Once
number
again,
one.
time out. In my opinion, the suggested changes do nothing to improve the policy, and I recommend that the policy remain as is.
Well,
So I don't care about first reading or second reading. I don't recommend this policy move forward, period.
there's a lot of improvement in policy. That's why we vote. That's why the board's gonna vote on it. Okay? Now, if you need 2 months.
Why are we gonna vote on it?
Huh?
Why are we voting on it?
Because we gotta go through the procedures, first.
Well, we don't
reading.
have to. The solicitor said it's not good policy.
Let me read again what the solicitors say. The board can, on the other hand, prohibit politics when they are being paid by the district or on the district property, and that's what this policy does.
That's what the original
Now-
policy did.
Now, Mr. Tewans is not a board member. Remember that. He cannot recommend anything. The only thing he can do is give us his legal opinion, but he doesn't give an legal opinion. He's just giving his personal opinion. You got that?
The suggested changes do nothing to improve the policy. There is wisdom and generalities. I mean, he makes a lot of good points. I mean,
Oh, yeah, but unfortunately, he's not gonna vote. He's not a board member.
well, just because he's not gonna vote doesn't mean that his opinion isn't
Well,
valid.
Look,
Can I ask a question? So,
yes,
Please
yes,
do.
ma'am.
somebody bring me up to speed. I know I'm new here, so I'm sorry if this is a stupid question. Luigi, I respect the fact that you study these policies and you pay attention to detail, and I've seen that before I was even on the board. And I'm grateful to
ma'am.
you for the time that you put into that, and I don't mean any disrespect. And I know that if there's a policy that needs to be reviewed, that we have a responsibility to do that. But we're
Correct.
living in a time in history right now that has never been seen before. People, whether you believe whatever your politics is, whatever you think about social distancing, whatever everybody's personal opinion is, the reality is the entire world right now is dealing with very real, present, people are dying. Kids are not graduating. People are not working. People are going hungry. Why in the world do we have to sit here and bicker over a policy that can wait a minute? I don't understand why we are all having to put so much time in here right this minute. I don't disagree that it needs to be reviewed. Does it need to be reviewed tonight when we can't even read it? I don't even know what you're talking about because I don't even have your new one written. I'm getting
I
frustrated.
agree with you, Mrs. Davis. I agree 100%. And that's why we're gonna have 2 months before it's gonna be scheduled for a vote. 2 months. And everybody's gonna get a copy. And it's my fault that I should have sent this copy, but unfortunately, I try to make everybody happy. I very much believe that the present policy needs to be improved because this doesn't say nothing. It says one sentence. And the present policy is on the internet. Everybody can look at it.
But if
There's
our
only one-
solicitors looked it over and from a legal perspective gave a very valid opinion, why do we need to put so much effort into this minute?
Oh, this has been
I guess
going on.
maybe it's just my lack of training yet. Maybe I don't understand.
This has been going on for over 3 months, wasn't it?
We started about in February.
In February. This has been going on since February.
It didn't need to start in February, is what she's saying.
It-
It doesn't matter when you started. Right now, this doesn't need to be on our agenda. And it can wait 2 months, 6 months from now, if we vote on this, it's the same thing. There's no reason to push this through on this agenda, to have a first reading this early on it. I agree exactly with what Jen said. If we prioritize what the board should be spending time on and what our superintendent and our solicitors, if we prioritize it, this is not a priority at this time, especially this policy, which we're changing every minute. There's no reason for this to be on the agenda at this time. Thank you, Jen.
Well, Jeff, evidently you don't understand what the first reading is all about. However, let's see what the committee wants to do.
Just for clarity, I did upload that, so if you're following along at home and you refresh your board docs, you'll see that policy scan, so, sorry.
Well, my proposal is, dear member of the board, do you want to proceed?
What's the point? What does it matter what I think?
Well, let's
This
take a
is what I
vote.
wanna talk about. I wanna talk about why this committee is a railroad committee.
The what?
You two always agree. I'm always the dissenter. Why do I even vote? Why do you care what I think?
I don't have a problem if we put it off another month, if that's what everybody wants.
At least. Thank you, Bob.
All right, then we agree Let's put a precise date, because this gotta stop.
Well,
The board has to decide what to
put
do.
it in on June, that way it should satisfy everybody having time to look it over.
No, I don't wanna put it forward at all.
Excuse me?
I don't wanna put it forward at all. I'm satisfied with the original policy.
Well, then there is no reason for to postpone it 2 months, because you're not gonna change your mind in 2 months, right?
No,
Exactly. You gotta-
Gives everybody else a chance to read it and weigh in.
Right, okay. So we do that way.
Who recommended that we put changes to this policy?
Everybody's gonna get a copy. Now, to satisfy everybody, by June, by the next committee in June, the board meeting, if anybody has got any proposal or any comments, then you can make it between now and June, period. And then we'll take it on before the board.
well, no, won't we have another policy meeting in June before the board meeting?
We're gonna have,
Yeah, we can do that. I'm okay with
Well,
that.
then we can discuss it again.
June first,
is that okay with you?
June first, 5 o'clock? All right.
Okay.
All right, I'll send that out.
Okay. So everybody got that? And June first, we're gonna have another committee meeting, and, the proposed, policy will be sent to everybody, so that you can read it. And please, read it this time. All right, the next item on the agenda will be, proposed policy 321.1. Mr. Johnston, that's your, proposal. Would you please go ahead and explain to everybody?
Basically, it's my understanding that the board approves policies in order to give the administration guidance with the scope to protect the district employees and its students. I'm proposing 321 with the intent to do both. Children are very susceptible from what they hear from adults, especially from those that they're in contact with on a daily basis outside the family. The student attends public school to gain basics and education and to be prepared for the future. I firmly believe that the student should receive a balanced, discussion in current events without making emphasis on who are the good guys or the bad guys. In particular, I do not think that a professional should force a student to complete an assignment with expected results as dictated. I have received a few complaints about parents who brought it to my attention about the fact that, students have been influenced, against this policy. On the other hand, employees should be aware that what the board expect from them to do or not to do, this would be, in my opinion, to prevent any possibility of legal problems, with the public. Please note that the policy has nothing to do with free speech of the adults. On the contrary, it has a lot to do with the free speech for the students. And, basically, I got two sentences in the guidelines on this now. Students shall be introduced to opposing viewpoints. Assignments shall include materials and/or resources from several available sources. The second point, during class time, employees shall not endorse or express personal disapproval of any candidate running for any public office. It's the only two things that I got in there. I don't have a problem with them discussing current events, I encourage that. I just don't want somebody forcing their ideology as far as political candidates and what have you. And we can,
I can scan that. Let me do that now.
Okay. We need the restroom real quick and then we'll talk.
About a couple of minutes of recess.
Sure, yeah. We'll take a recess while I upload this document. Should be just a minute. All right, this one has been uploaded and saved as 5/4/20 V2, version 2. So if you give it a minute and refresh your browser or your page, you should see that document up there.
All right, shall we proceed? Mr. Johnson, is the policy you just read, the proposed policy you just read, it sounds very similar to what Dr. Gleispool posted on Pancrest site.
I believe when we, made the first one, Dr. Glasspool had composed that from our discussion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think 312 was, so what you're saying is the version 2, it looks more like the one from 312.
Yeah.
I gotta pull that one up.
I believe you put that one together from our discussion, if memory serves me correctly.
Let's see here. Yeah, they're pretty close. But that version 2 is up, so if that's the one that the board wants to talk about, folks should have access to it. I also emailed it to the board, for their ease of review.
I think he made the one change at the second paragraph.
This is the one that Mr. Johnson just read.
Oh, wow, that was quick.
Discussion?
I can start if nobody else is gonna jump in. When we first discussed this policy in our committee meetings, I opposed it. And I said, again, this is a solution in search of a problem. Do we have a problem with this? And one of the committee members said, yes, one teacher does this. And I said, so we have, what, 150, 200, 300 teachers? I don't know how many we have.
234.
234. Okay, so one person they're trying to squelch, apparently.
Two now.
Two now, because Mr. Johnson,
There, when we talked about that, you came in late to that meeting.
Mr. Johnson said there was one other one now. To me, this is, without a doubt, a solution in search of a problem. This is not necessary. There's no other district, probably in the state, definitely in our region, but none in the state that has anything this specific or anything like this. Our solicitor, again, referred us to policy 119, which I read, and I would encourage everyone to read policy 119. They're on the website. Read policy 119, which covers this. It doesn't say political, but it says current events, and it covers the same material. The solicitor has said that this policy is redundant and unnecessary. And one of our other board members brought up a good point. Are we just trying to tell teachers they can't teach things that you don't agree with? Or, for instance, if a teacher is talking about 9/11, do they have to go find materials from the Quran to show the terrorist point of view? It works both ways. I think this is a redundant, unnecessary policy, and I can't support it.
You done?
Yeah.
Well, I'm reading what he wrote down there. And I don't see anything that's got anything to do with what you just said, the 9/11 and everything else. He only says that,
You have to teach the opposing view. I'm sorry to interrupt, Luigi, but it says you have to teach the opposing viewpoint.
no, it says students shall be introduced to opposing viewpoints, so the kids
Exactly.
get the opposing viewpoints.
Exactly.
Assignment shall include material and/or resources from several available sources. The only thing that I think it's asking right there, that all the kids are gonna be exposed to opposing views, which is, that's the freedom, to hear what opposing views are. And if it's any assignment that the teacher gives to the kids should be, the students, I'm sorry, they should be available, all the students should be allowed to use any source that they feel that they can use for the assignment.
Of course.
In other words, they can go to a communist resource, or go to Fox News, or a nationalist news. They can do anything they want, instead of strictly tell them, no, this is what, you can't go to Fox News to report for your assignment, or you cannot go to a Democratic or the CNN. No, that's exactly the way I interpret what he's saying. Now, during the class time, and the next line says that they're not allowed to endorse candidates for political office. They shouldn't do that to begin with. And I know that somebody have done it already. Okay,
I think
it's been done.
I think that's covered in policy 119, and if it isn't, we could amend policy 119 instead of coming up with something brand new.
Well,
I
what
don't
I'm,
have a problem doing that as long as it's in writing somewhere. I don't see that in policy 119.
I read 119 myself also, and to me, the two are complementary to the other. And 119 is not very specific. It only mentioned, if I remember correctly, indoctrination, one word. And can you read the paragraph, Bob, about 119?
Which one, the definition or the authority?
No, the what it says, indoctrination and something else.
It, well, number 2 point says,
Yeah.
does not tend to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view.
Okay, which one complements the other. I mean, 119 is not very specific. It's specific as the proposal one is, and they complement each other. 119, if I remember, is about discussing current events.
Mm-hmm.
This is specifically, is talking about political activity, which is an extension to 321, like the solicitor said. That's what my opinion anyway.
Right, and I still believe it's an unnecessary solution in search of a problem. Use that phrase again.
Anybody else, any comments?
What's the origin of this policy? Why did we decide to undertake it? Was it the PSBA recommendation, or did the board direct the committee to work on this?
You want to answer that, Bob?
I got 2 parents that came to me, one that told that their student wasn't allowed to use certain news sources to do their homework. The second parent said an elementary teacher in Maplewood was pushing the anti-gun agenda to the elementary kids.
Did you take this to the board, or did you just go to the policy committee and do what you wanted?
I came to Dr. Glasspool with this, and we've been working on it in the policy committee.
Was that your recommendation to write a brand new policy for that, Dr. Glass?
Well, I think we discussed how we could address this, and this policy came from the committee.
No, he didn't, Dr.
It
Glasspool
didn't come
didn't.
from the committee, it came
No.
from
No, it came-
somebody on the committee that wrote it.
We worked
Okay.
on it in the policy.
I'm just saying, I wasn't consulted, I was blindsided by it, that's,
Well, you,
I certainly didn't work with you on this policy, that's all I can say.
no, you were present with, I understand where you stand, but you as a committee member are allowed to introduce any policy that you want. And we discussed it, he did it, and I did it, because that's the way things are done. If you
I
want to
understand. I
propose
have no
something,
problem
you
with
can
it.
do
I'm just
it.
saying I wasn't consulted, I'm just putting it out there that it wasn't a unanimous
Okay,
writing of this policy.
let me explain it this way for everybody. The parliamentary procedures is says this: any board member during a meeting can introduce a motion. Any board member. And the motion can be discussed only if there is a second. And it works the same way with the committee. Any of us can introduce a policy, new or old, whatever. And if we all agree to bring it all before the whole board, still, somebody has to make a motion to discuss it before the board. And it has to have a second. If there is no second, the motion dies, and this is forgotten. If there's a second, then you take a vote. That's the way it works.
Who made the motion and who was the second? Can I get a copy of those minutes from that meeting?
What? Motion for what?
What you just said, Luigi, you said that someone made a motion and someone seconded it and it was approved. So I'd like a copy of those minute notes saying who made the motion and who seconded it.
Mr. Brooks, I didn't say that. I'm giving you an example how things work on the board.
That was unrelated. I'm sorry, Luigi, that was my fault. That was unrelated to this.
Okay.
What if we
Again,
try to roll this into the,
This seems, again, to go to what Jen said before, to agree with Jen. This policy is not urgent. It is not something we need to address at this time. We just got a policy here tonight. I don't see any reason for it to come up again. I would put it on the same as 321. That'd be my recommendation on this.
what if I try to roll this into
That's
one
fine.
nineteen? What if we look at it, including some of that language into 119?
I don't have a problem with that.
Let me see what I can do in spare time for June 1.
Let me read the 119. Can I look at 119?
It's up on the screen there.
Yeah, but I'm an old guy, you know.
Oh, I got you. I mean, I'm thinking that some of this could be included under the authority, and where it says delegation of responsibility, instead of saying that the superintendent shall assist teaching staff members to develop alertness to the occurrence of current events in the context of curriculum. Basically, I'm gonna tell people to start reading the news, I guess, I don't know, and techniques to manage current events. Maybe what we can do is we can include some of that, so to include if a parent has a concern about something, they go to, and we could delineate a process.
But it
Such as
says-
if, talk to the teacher, talk to the principal, with some concerns.
But 119 says you cannot indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. What more do you have to say besides that?
A definition of what indoctrination is.
I think we could include some of the parts of 321.1.
We could put an indoctrination definition, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
What if you give me a minute?
There's some things that we can find common ground on, but not all this specific political.
Give me a couple of weeks. I also, 119 probably needs to be a little more specific.
Now, the only thing that I disagree with, just because we have one board member or two board members, that disagree on what this committee is gonna do, doesn't mean we have to postpone everything. I mean, if Mr. Brooks don't like it, well, let's take a vote and vote no, yes or no.
Well, I'm one committee member that feels like I'm never heard.
That's fine.
So
That's,
my suggestion is,
Right.
what if we make a rule that, in committee, the vote has to be unanimous before something moves forward?
then you have a no. And who's gonna make the rule?
Yeah, that unanimous will never work. You guys know better than that.
You could solve, anybody.
Well, Tim, you know this committee, and
That's
it's not
why you have
working,
the board
it's not working the way it is.
Committee meetings are outlined in policy 006, and it specifically says that, the majority of the total membership of the standing committee shall constitute a quorum. But it doesn't really say anything about who moves what out of the meeting.
Right, we could specify that.
No, it should be, that's fine. We got to move on. We have, as Jen said, we have a lot of shit that's really important. We need to move on, but I will say this policy does not bother me. A couple little changes. I just want to make sure that we are not stepping on constitutional rights. That's the only thing that I request. I do agree with, and there are people that do not allow both sides of the talking point, we'll say, and that I disagree with that. So I do want to make sure that this is done properly. I've read it over a half a dozen times, and I have a couple little words, but I will email you, Luigi, once I make sure I want to make sure I have my thoughts in order, if you know what I mean.
Fine.
It's not bad. That's not far off from me. I'll stop there.
Hey, Tim, could I ask you a question, please? Under policy 119, it says you cannot indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. If we have teachers doing that, why can't we go after them right now based on policy 119?
Because
Well,
there is,
it doesn't matter. He asked me, Luigi, and here's my point of view. You're right. We can do it on 119, or we can add 321.1, I believe it is. We can just fix up 119. I'm perfectly fine with that. But if nobody enforces it, here's the sad part, Luigi. You can do all the policies you want, but if they're not enforced, they're just a piece of paper.
exactly,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
I'm being honest with you. These policies, and Dr. Glasspool, you're here, you're going to hear from me. These policies do not get enforced by many people. So we're spending a lot of time on something that I'm sorry, but it's just I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but it's not going to get enforced the way you'd like, Luigi. I can tell you that right now.
Well, I agree with you, Timothy, especially when I'm looking at policy 119, there is no penalty at the end. Even if we try to enforce it, how are we going to enforce it if the people can do it and don't get penalized for it? So and then the other point I would like to make, policy 119 concerns current events. So if Dr. Glasspool is capable to introduce 321.1 into this policy, but not to limit the current events, then it's fine. It's fine with me. Unless if you want to.
I'm okay with that.
I trust him to
Tim, I want to
modify.
make one point. Both of these parents that came forward are afraid to come to Dr. Glasspool with their concerns because of retribution from the teachers. And that shouldn't be. The parents should be able to feel comfortable coming forward with a concern.
Just as an aside here, there should be some limited to the sources that students are allowed to use. You can't use any source you want. You can't say, I heard from my mama says that a reason a alligator is so angry is because it's got so many teeth. You need to have some limit on the sources, and this policy wouldn't in any way address person who wanted to use whatever source they wanted to use. So, the other side is if we're forcing people to teach every side of every issue in science, we have to teach that the earth is both round and flat. I think it's over-regulation. I think it's too much government regulation on what we're trying to do, and we're not going to accomplish anything. We have a lot of real work for our superintendent to be doing, and this policy is not a priority. I would say that, again, if voting on it and getting it off the agenda is gonna clear up more time for us to get back to educating our kids instead of worrying about policies that no one else is recommending other than Pencrest, then whatever it takes to get this done so that we can move forward as a district and get back to what really matters. Is neither one of these policies are necessary to be talking about or spending this much time on, in my.
All right,
I gotta make Dr. Gus, I gotta make one point to make sure that everybody understand this. We have, 4 board directors over here. And we got how many online? 3, which means right now we have a full board discussing. Legally, right now, we have a board meeting right now, okay? And we gotta be careful because it was not advertised, it was advertised as a committee, public committee meeting. And, I didn't say anything to stop you guys to get involved in this meeting because it's good to have your opinion. But we gotta be careful. We cannot get together more than 5 people and discuss anything unless we tell everybody that's public at board meeting. Now, and that's the same way, the same thing goes on the social media. We can't have 5 of us people discuss anything on social media because technically that's another board meeting. And that's something that Ted Watts has been telling us for years. And I've been on this board for many years. So I just want to make sure you understand this. Anything else on 320? So what's the decision that we want to make, Dr. Grace, want to try to incorporate it to?
Incorporating it into the.
Yeah, I'll try to find some middle ground and then I'll take a look at that and.
Incorporate it into 119.
Yeah.
119, yeah.
Yes, let's just move
All
on.
right,
We got
I'll
a
see what I
lot
can do.
of stuff to worry about.
That's all I got.
All right.
Okay, the end of 32, okay, now, the last item we have is, policy 002. The other thing I want to say is the reason why the additional proposed paragraph was added is because there seems to be a misunderstanding of the duties of the solicitor with the district, and the relation of the solicitor with each director. The district is the solicitor client, and the board is the district manager. And the board knows that the solicitor can easily be contacted by the superintendent and answer requests made through the superintendent. Now, policy 2 contains the following paragraph. The board of directors has the sole responsibility to oversee the legal services rendered by the district solicitor. However, the board directors realize that the events may require legal services that occur at any moment without prior knowledge. For this reason, the board of directors provides the superintendent the authority to contact the district solicitor for legal advice and to authorize any legal proceedings that the superintendent believes is in the best interest of the district. The superintendent shall make available a monthly report for all legal undertaken by the district solicitor to the board of directors. Now, there is nothing in this paragraph that contains the following as stated in the memorandum sent by the solicitor to the board and superintendent recently. He stated, the policy goes on to say that the district superintendent may confer with the solicitor when he deems appropriate, so long as he reports regarding consultation at the next meeting. I don't see that in the paragraph that I read just before. Although the suggested change was made with intent to satisfy those directors who seems to frequently decide a legal opinion, I do not agree to consider it at this time. However, I strongly recommend that the committee reconvenes at the time most convenient to recommend a solution regarding the board responsibility to oversee the legal services rendered by the district solicitor, with intent to clarify as much as possible any questions. So in other words, you know, the paragraph is out. You know, there's no change at this point. Any comments? Anybody else, any comments?
So I'm not to be mean, but I had trouble understanding you, a lot of that. The last paragraph of 002. You have the board of directors realized that an individual director could require a legal opinion on a subject that he or she is called to vote on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's out. I'm saying,
You took that out. You took that out?
I'm removing the proposed.
Okay.
No, I'm removing because the intent was to satisfy those directors that always ask you for a opinion from the solicitor. But it's up to the board. You know, if any one of us, as far as I'm concerned, wants the solicitor to give us an opinion on anything, we should go to the board, and the board should decide if we can or not. That's the way I read the policy 002. And that's why I agree.
When we're having a board meeting, he's already on the payroll, that's trying to.
I have no problems with that, but the copy I have here said, reads that the director will place a request to the superintendent, and I can just see all the problems doing that.
Yeah, it's out.
Okay.
Taking that out.
Taking that out.
I don't understand what the recommendation is. Are you
What are we
not
talking about?
recommending
The same policy then?
changes?
No, because I agree with this, believe it or not, I agree with the solicitor, okay? And the
Wait,
reason
wait.
that,
Mark that
Huh?
down on the calendar. Mark that on the calendar.
mark it down.
I wrote it down already.
It might be the last one.
Somebody call Chad.
The idea was, you know, to satisfy people, the directors that always ask for opinion, the solicitor opinion. But if any director wants to get an opinion, then he should go to the board, either during an executive meeting, most likely, and the board will have to decide if it's a good idea or not.
I agree.
If we go to them individually, we're unnecessarily creating a bill, send them an email,
Yeah,
phone call, we're creating a bill.
Yeah, well, we couldn't do that. We'd have to go through Tim, but still, it's running up the bill, you're right.
Well, I was gonna say, if you guys wanna go individually, then you should be responsible for the bill.
Exactly.
So,
I agree with that. Mark that down.
So are we not amending 002 now? It's all.
We're done with, as far as I'm concerned, we're done with 202. The only thing I'm asking is that we gotta make sure that each director understand the meaning of section 2002. What the responsibility of the solicitor is, and what and the district's the client. No individual director is the client. We can't use the solicitor for whatever we think that he can help us with, you know. That's it. We're done. As far as I'm concerned, I'm done. Okay, if we don't have anything else, any new business?
Any policies we should be looking at in the near future?
Well, it's up to you, you know. You're the one that come up with a good.
Yeah, I've got some.
Are there
June.
still old ones that need updated?
Yeah, you know, like, probably around the, kind of the next couple months, look at the policies we may need to update for the beginning of school year. So they deal with like, suspensions, expulsions, discipline, student rights responsibility, extracurricular activities. So we'll try to focus on anything we need to review or update for the beginning of school over the summer.
I definitely
Fine.
want to
And-
make sure we, look good at, student rights, especially if there's a problem, you know, with like 321 or 119 or something like that. I want to make sure our students are taken care of on it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll work on those and see what we can get together. But we'll focus on the revisions that we talked about for June, so July and August. Well, we got a July, so if we wanna pass anything, it's gotta be in July, so we can get ready for to print those handbooks, et cetera. That's all I have.
Okay, that's it?
Yep.
Well, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Adios.
All right, thank you, and thank you so much to everybody that joined us on, YouTube Live.
Now that the,
Thanks so much.
Have a
now
good
that
night.
the meeting.
Good night.
Take care.
Take care. Thanks for,
Drive safe
going.
now.